So hi everyone. Our presentation is on the military impacts on marine life. So what is the problem and how did it start? The issue is the use of marine animals for military purposes. It started with the United States in 1959 with the establishment of the US Navy Marine Mammal Program. In response as a competitive tactic during the Cold War, Russia also developed their own marine mammal program. Within these programs, dolphins and sea lions are the animals most commonly used due to the intelligence and their natural abilities, which will be discussed further in future slides. Over 19 marine mammals were tested by the US Navy to find animals that can perform tasks that we as humans can't. The enforcement of these military actions has direct and indirect impacts on marine life. To start with, some direct impacts that are imposed among dolphins and sea lions begins with the harsh training tactics. These animals are trained to complete dangerous tasks such as detecting underwater mines and retrieving foreign objects. These mammals become so dependent on the captivity patterns that this could actually alter survival skills needed to withstand the open ocean. In addition to the direct impacts, indirect impacts are also an issue. The use of active sonar by the military results in indirect issues within marine ecosystems. Active sonar is a method developed by the Navy used to detect and track enemy vessels. This is achieved by generating sound waves with frequencies of up to 235 decibels, and they can actually travel up to in a 300-mile radius. So this use of active sonar interferes with biological processes, resulting in irregular behavioral patterns among marine life. And the trafficking of military vessels is the second underlying contributor that we will cover that causes disturbances within marine ecosystems. It has structural impacts altering the habitats of organisms and also having physiological impacts affecting communication between species, mating signals, and reproductive cycles. So although there is a good amount of work being conducted around this topic, there is still a need for greater research in order to find harsh evidence that will allow us to understand these impacts on ecosystems and act upon them to prevent further harm.
So how does this problem impact marine ecosystems? So there are two vulnerable organisms that are bottlenose dolphins and California sea lions. The reason they're used is because they're both excellent swimmers, both have exceptional low light vision and underwater hearing, and they can also outdive humans and a lot of our technologies without the risk of decompression sickness. Dolphins also possess a really complex form of sonar called echolocation, as you can see in the figure, that allows them to detect and track moving objects. And so some of the direct of this program on the marine ecosystems is the physical and psychological damage that it causes to the organisms. A lot of the times these organisms are kept in pen states, and so when they're moved back to the wild, their ability to adapt to wild conditions is diminished. And the training also uses negative reinforcement tactics, such as axing, which is the denying of food, and baiting, which is throwing foods outside their pens during the training. And these can both lead to impoverishment and nutrient depletion. So some of the indirect impacts caused by the program is the physical trafficking by military vessels. The more frequently a military vessel traffics a certain ecosystem, the more vulnerable to damage it is, whether that be damaging the structures such as coral or the physical damage to the organisms like scarring. There's also increased potential for oil spills, and there's heavy traffic and also disrupt cycles. And we also have increased military sonar used with increased trafficking. And so sonar has actually been linked to cause behavioral changes, such as the inability to carry out normal functions such as foraging, communication, reproduction. And so these can often cause decreased responses to predation, resulting in increased mortality. And in a lot of the cases, increased military sonar use has been linked to increase in strandings of porpoises and whales.
The impact on ecosystems. So these programs naturally require marine vessels to move. When marine vessels move, animals can be struck, especially larger animals. Air pollution can be caused. Invasive species could be introduced to new environments. Noise pollution can occur underwater, and sediments can be contaminated. The actual capture of specimens can also pose a problem because other more vulnerable animals could accidentally be captured or maimed. The past and present situation. The US and USSR abandoned their military mammal testing and training programs by the 1990s. But since then, especially in the 2000s, the US, Russia, and the Ukraine have restarted and expanded these programs. In the future, two factors are likely to cause an increase in the prominence of the consequences of these programs. As militaries emerge, they could try to establish marine mammal programs of their own, and increasing naval and military expenditure can cause existing military programs of this nature to increase in size and prominence.
Okay, sorry about that. There was a little bit of a technical error on my end. So now that we've talked about the problems, let's try and fix some of them. Firstly, the impacts of marine mammal programs can be alleviated in two ways, through improving the program itself or replacing it. On the improvement side, adopting ethical animal husbandry programs, such as positive reinforcement-based training, is key. Positive reinforcement training revolves around using food as a reward rather than withholding food as a punishment. Think about teaching your dog how to sit with a treat. This creates a great relationship between the animal and the trainer, which has been proven to improve task performance. Moving to the replacement side, new robotics are being developed to take over the roles of marine mammals in these programs. The knifefish, seen in the image below, is an autonomous underwater vehicle which uses sonar to detect mines, replacing dolphins in one of their major naval roles. If we continue to have innovations like this, we could replace marine mammal programs entirely. The main indirect impacts of navies come from sonar use and physical trafficking, both of which have solutions already being phased in. Alternatives to active sonar, such as passive and forward-looking sonar systems, can mitigate the overall sonar output by navies. Passive sonar uses no sonar of its own, while forward-looking sonar can have a reduced sonar output. Additionally, active sonar uses can be adapted to new practices which reduce the auditory distress on marine life. Soft starts are one of these practices, where the sonar is started at a higher frequency but lower intensity, alerting marine life in the area to the oncoming use of sonar and allowing them time to move away to safety. Limiting the harms of physical trafficking is a primary goal of NATO for its associated navies. They've instituted mandatory annual reports from all naval initiatives known as environmental impact assessments or statements. While these environmental impact assessments involve vulnerable habitats, external investigations can be prompted. Also concerned with vulnerable habitats, many NATO countries have instituted naval buffer zones around which vulnerable habitats must be kept. Commonly, these areas are nursing regions. These are widely ranging based on which navy we look at, from the largest at 5,000 kilometers to the smallest at 1.8. Unfortunately, this 1.8 kilometer buffer zone is currently held by the US Navy, our lovely neighbors, and it does affect the BC coast. While there are extensive problems, there are also extensive solutions. And if navies commit to sustainable practices, they could immediately reduce a great amount of stress to marine ecosystems. Thank you so much.